April 23rd, 2014. I want to do a world radiation update. NBC News is saying biblical devastation from Fukushima disaster, says a former official. When I was mayor, I knew many people who died from heart attacks. Many people in Fukushima died suddenly, even young people. TEPCO employees are also dying, but everyone is keeping mum about it. You're almost declared a terrorist if you talk about this there. He says that the officials lied to everyone, hid the truth. It's a violation of human rights to expose people to radiation like this. Now the evacuees are being forced to return into these areas. I'm really ashamed of my country. They don't want to put the money up. The insurance companies are balking against having to cover these medical bills, and the World Health Organization is trying to hide it. But it says the World Health Organization stated in 2013 thyroid ultrasound screening program, it said they found that more than 36% of the children in the prefecture had abnormal growths in their thyroid glands. However, whether the growths can be attributed to exposure to nuclear radiation has not yet been proven. Said that this was a man-made disaster. Separate study by Stanford found the Japanese plants operated by the largest utility companies were particularly unprotected against potential tsunamis, as if Japan is not in that area. Their history talks about tsunamis. And these were built, guys, by the same people that built the ones on the West Coast. They look identical. They have the same amount of protection from a tsunami, almost none. They're talking about freezing the ground there. But with another tsunami, they're saying that will just wash out. And the ground is sinking. Says it's irreparable damage from Fukushima. Plant's boss admits water problems are out of control. Catastrophe remains ongoing. Shows no sign of resolution. Said the Fukushima radiation is killing children. Heart problems, leukemia, thyroid. Says terrible things are going on and the authorities are hiding the truth from the world. We need to admit many people are dying, but we're not allowed to say that. It says the ground is sinking beneath Fukushima reactor buildings. Government experts looking closely at risks from changes to flow of underground water. A television show host, he said, I was told not to discuss Fukushima on the air, but I did anyway. They didn't want to talk about it a lot, but eventually it became undeniable. The world is not rushing to aid because nothing can be done. It's getting worse and worse. It's a tragedy. Now, they're talking about moving the folks back in there, and this Odakai Hospital is the first medical facility to reopen in the district surrounding the damaged nuclear power plant. The hospital is now awaiting the lift of an evacuation advisory for the area, scheduled to be completely removed by April 2016. They say it's going to take a minimum of 40 years if they can figure out a way to clean it up. But they're currently prohibited the residents from staying there except at night. That's how dangerous it is. And you can go there and look at some of those reports. The doctors that are seeing these kids are standing on one side of a glass in a radiation suit. The mother and child that in this area where they're putting this hospital, they have to stand outside that fully exposed while the doctor reaches through with gloves and administers medicine. It's pathetic, but they're going to move them back in. That way, the insurance companies, along with the nuclear companies, are not liable. According to Dogawa, there are 2 million people residing in the prefecture who are reporting all sorts of medical issues, but the government insists these conditions are unrelated to the Fukushima accident. I demanded that the authorities substantiate their claims in writing, but they ignored my request. He said it alludes to the nuclear tragedy that hit Ukraine, April 26, 1986, pleading that the Japanese people never forgot Chernobyl. Yet few people seem to be heeding the former government's official warning to believe what the government says, while in reality radiation is still there. This is killing children. They die of heart conditions, asthma, leukemia, thyroiditis. Says lots of kids are extremely exhausted after school. West Coast, are you listening? Others are simply unable to attend PE classes now, but the authorities still hide the truth from us. I don't know why. You do. I'm telling you why. Don't they have children of their own? It hurts me so much to know we can't protect our children. They're forcing them back in. They say Fukushima Prefecture is safe, and that's why nobody is working to evacuate the children. More than elsewhere, we're not even allowed to discuss it. The former mayor found it ironic that when discussing the Tokyo Olympics, that the Prime Minister Abe frequently mentioned the Japanese word omotenashi, which literally means that you should treat people with an open heart. Now, guys, I can't wait to get my tickets to the Tokyo Olympics. I mean, you can be glowing when you leave. The whole airplane will be glowing. I mean, really? Really? Now, I wonder how much radiation dosage they got in Sochi from the Ukrainian Chernobyl incident. They're not going to tell you about any of that, guys. It's not going to be talked about. And Japan is not our only problem. That's where a lot of the West Coast problem started. And this is one of the Ronald Reagan's helicopters. I'm just going to complete the report. Let's get it all down. This report says the Ronald Reagan is in the news because several dozen crew members of the Reagan are trying to sue TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Corporation, for concealing the radiation release and thereby damaging their health. It says that, unsurprisingly, members of the armed services are precluded from suing U.S. military for damage to their health, so redress must be sought elsewhere. So they're kind of in a bind. It can be hard to sue TEPCO, but they're trying. It said that the Ronald Reagan spent a couple of months at sea after contamination trying to clean itself up. Then, according to lawyers for the sailors claiming injury, it was decontaminated at port in Washington State, guys, for another year and a half before returning to service. This thing was so heavily dosed, it probably never will be safe. Guys, because there's records that show that has never been done. Once that metal absorbs all that radiation, and guys, everybody who works in the ports I'm talking about, you need to be aware of this report. It says, in the midst of a snowstorm, deckhands were enveloped in a warm cloud that came over with a metallic taste. Sailors testify the Reagan's 5,500-member crew were told over the ship's intercom to avoid drinking or bathing in desalinized water drawn from the radioactive sea. The huge carrier quickly ceased its humanitarian efforts and sailed 100 miles out to sea, where newly published internal Navy communications confirmed it was still taking serious doses of radioactive fallout. A stunning new report indicates the U.S. Navy knew the sailors from the nuclear-powered Reagan took major radiation hits from the Fukushima atomic power plant after its meltdown and explosions nearly 3 years ago. Many of the sailors are already suffering devastating health impacts but are being stonewalled by TEPCO and the Navy. The 4.3 billion carrier is now docked in San Diego. Critics question whether it belongs there at all. Attempts to decontaminate U.S. ships during the Pacific nuclear test were fruitless. They tried it. They just couldn't get it out of that metal, and they're not going to be able to do it now. But this is kind of the timing of this deal, guys. You pay attention to it. It says that the ship returned to San Diego on the 9th of September 2011. In January 2011, the Navy announced the Ronald Reagan would be transferred to the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington, for a scheduled repair and maintenance beginning January 2012. You guys got a good dose in Bremerton. On the 10th of January 2012, the Reagan's official home port was changed to Bremerton, Washington, where she stayed for a little over a year, while returning to her home port of San Diego on March 21st, 2013. Now, on January 14th this year, the Navy announced the U.S. Ronald Reagan would replace the USS George Washington as the only forward deployed carrier at Yokosuka in Japan. That will occur sometimes in 2015. They can't contaminate it, so they're going to send it back over, guys. I guess they're saying, well, Washington, it couldn't hurt Washington because they're already catching all the seals are dying and all the shellfish are dying there. How's it going to hurt? So let's put it up there, bring it back to San Diego, give them a dose. Now, Their dose good. We can't do anything with it. Let's go back to Japan and maybe it will just hide in all the other reports. But that's not all, guys. Let's go up to Hanford. Spokane, Washington report says the state of Washington on Friday rejected the U.S. Department of Energy's proposal to amend a federal court agreement governing cleanup of the Hanford Nuclear Reservation, the nation's most polluted nuclear weapons production site. We watched this when they had to close the dam just upriver as it started cracking, guys. And they put people in there, and every time they'd put them in, they'd have to rush them to the hospital, even the inspectors. It says the state sent a letter to federal lawyers saying the March 31st proposal that would have eliminated many deadlines for Hanford cleanup is not acceptable to Washington. That's Washington State. They're eliminating money to clean this up. So they're eliminating deadlines so nobody can hold them accountable. It says Hanford is for decades made plutonium for nuclear weapons and now is engaged in cleaning up the nation's largest volume of radioactive waste near Richland. But here's the response. It says just 2 days after the Obama administration proposed to cut millions of dollars in funding to clean up the infamous Hanford nuclear site in Washington State, the Energy Department said Thursday that one of the location's oldest storage tanks may have sprung another leak. The Energy Department contractor overseeing the operations, which houses millions of gallons of radioactive waste and is considered one of the most contaminated sites in the U.S. or possibly the planet, notified its Office of River Protection of the possible leak Wednesday. Now, that report is a couple months old, this last one, guys. It's just showing you how this is kind of the history of this. We also have problems south of here in New Mexico at the WIP plant. We've been watching it, but this is the latest headlines. Let's check them out. It says crews retreat after nuclear material found at WIP. Officials say they were correct to turn back. Contamination was increasing. Robots are being brought to the site for radiation levels too high for humans. Significant amount of information will be revealed to the public. I doubt it. Mistake at congressional hearing. Another headline says senator says radioactive release from WIP has been at levels that are public health danger. EPA says this is a big deal. Newspaper there says WIP workers not permitted to speak. Their jobs won't ever be the same. They will face a new paradigm. Concerns plutonium contaminated the surrounding salt. Preparing for radiation levels so high only robots can be used. Guys, you better look at the WIP location there east of Carlsbad, New Mexico. You better watch your winds. Remember, just one hot particle in your lungs. That's all it takes. One microscopic particle. Also, out of San Francisco, again, mainstream is starting to at least recognize a problem. They're losing ratings so bad because they're stuck on this darn airplane that's not on the ocean. And they think we're stupid enough to watch a month of them searching around with a submarine and undersea radar guys. CNN, get real. They're saying that CBS in San Francisco, record number of sick seals and sea lions. Doctor says a lot with large pockets of green and yellow pus all over their body. NBC, record level of sick or injured California seals and sea lions turning up. The numbers are extraordinary. Scientists worry this is the worst kind of perfect storm. Pups should be weighing 2 or 3 times as much. Severely malnourished. So, most of those reports, 3 of them, had to do with Fukushima. Fukushima, the U.S. Reagan, and the West Coast. And guys, all up through there, Pacific Northwest, the shellfish are dying. The salmon, all the fish are contaminated, if they're even there. The seals are being contaminated with high radiation, and people are still swimming in that water. They're also malnourished because the sardines and some of their other fish are dead. The plankton is dying. That produces about 70% of the Earth's oxygen. It is a good thing that our Lord Jesus Christ has cut the end times short. But if you don't think they're here, when the whole world now is admitting there's nothing they can do to stop this, There's something severely wrong with your perspective. Heads up, be safe.